Today, I'm going to share a simple 5-step process that will transform your editing. My name is Austen Menges, and I've been a pro editor for over 20 years with a focus on broadcast TV commercials with budgets of $100,000 and higher. And today, I have a special guest, former editor, current veteran commercial director, and also current co-professor with Oscar-winning actor Matthew McConaughey at the University of Texas at Austin. Hello, Scott Rice, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Austin.
Today, we're going to walk you through my 5-step process that I use on every editing project, and we're going to do it by looking at some of our own work. And by the end of this video, you can actually take this 5-step process and use it in your own edits, and I guarantee it will transform how you work. So Scott, I think we should start out by just watching this commercial, and then we can dive into the 5 steps. All right, let's go.
ToxiClean cleans fast. The secret is our sparkles that damage red blood cells. Say goodbye to dirt and aquatic life due to our high levels of toxicity.
ToxiClean for shiny sheen.
Ingredients may shrink testicles and cause fertility problems.
What the f***? Do not question the ToxiClean.
ToxiClean.
Just because it cleans doesn't mean it's safe. For a clean that's safe and powerful, there's Let Me Shine.
So we'll dive straight in and get to the point. Step 1 is emotion. Now you might be thinking to yourself, emotion, when I think of emotion, I think of sadness or longing or despair. And you just showed me an utterly ridiculous parody commercial. How is that possible? Well, emotion doesn't just mean the sad emotions. It means all emotions, which it might be discomfort or anxiety or humor. We wanted our audience to laugh. And also, I'm not talking about the emotion of the characters, like the little boy that was in the spot or the mom and the dad. We're talking about the emotion we want the audience to feel. So step 1 is to pick target emotions for what you want your audience to experience in whatever you're making. Maybe it is a dramatic feature film or a 20-minute documentary. In our case, it's a 30-second parody commercial, but we always start with our why. And so Scott and I, as soon as this script crossed his desk from the ad agency, I guarantee you Scott was thinking about what he wanted the audience to feel. And then he and I talk about that together, and then we make all of our other editing decisions based on that target emotion. So Scott, tell me a little bit about how you think of emotion, and then in particular, this spot, what you were thinking we would try to evoke in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, when I first read it, I felt delight. So there's something delightful in a parody. So recognizing a P&G commercial, it's kind of sterile, everything's clean, the product works perfectly, but we're going to flip that on its head and make the product evil, doing bad things, Right. So I just delighted in that concept. So everything we did to shoot it, and then everything we did in the editing was to service that sort of delight that would lead to laughter. So it created this contrast between the super shiny happy family and the shiny kitchen with this really scary product that's going to injure, kill aquatic life, and shrink testicles.
Ingredients may shrink testicles and cause fertility problems.
And the juxtaposition of the happiness with the parents starting to figure out this ain't so good, and climaxing in the ToxiClean actually yelling at you, saying you have to obey the ToxiClean.
Yeah. Do not question the ToxiClean.
That was always supposed to lead up to a laugh. Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think one thing you said was delight, but you also said the audience understanding at the beginning of the spot what they're seeing. I would think of that emotion as sort of an aha moment, or a moment that kind of a feeling of oh, I get it. And that's so important in
recognition,
parody.
Yeah.
Recognition, that's the word. So from the outset, we want the audience to feel that recognition, and then we take them on a journey to, by the end of it, the emotion is almost like being horrified, but in a kind of funny way. By the time it's shrinking testicles and the ToxiClean's yelling at the poor family, and then obviously the emotion of the character, he is sort of a proxy for us. He's like, what the bleep? What the bleep is going on? And so that's the little emotional journey in this 30-second parody, I think. I think that's well put in a succinct way. So let's go to the second step. So first you picked your target emotions. Well, what's the second step? Well, in my case, it's story. And if these sound familiar to you, Walter Murch, legendary editor, came up with these 6 editing criteria in his book In the Blink of an Eye. And his first 3 are the same as my first 3, emotion, story, and soon we'll get to rhythm. But let's talk about story, Scott. Let's talk about what's the story of the spot. And then one thing Scott and I are always working on is making sure there's a dramatic structure. So audiences who are familiar with watching TV shows and feature films in the theater, that would be the main place we see this 3-act story structure. But that's not the only place for story structure. We are always thinking about it even in a 30-second spot. So Scott, walk us through the story structure of ToxiClean, this parody commercial.
Yeah, so if we consider, we have 3 acts. The first act is a quarter of the length. So actually, our first act is 7.5 seconds. This is a 30-second spot. And in that first act, we establish the normal world where a family's happy cleaning with their cleaning products and everything's good. And they're used to hearing this voiceover from nowhere talking about how ToxiClean, the product, is so great. But the voiceover happens to kind of just drop this little warning about how it kills red blood cells. And that's the end of our act 1. That's where the story goes in a certain direction. Like, wait a minute, this isn't what we expected. Something's going wrong with the product. So that takes the story in a special direction. Then we go another 7.5 seconds to the midpoint. The midpoint is just the halfway point of act 2, so we've completed act 1. The first half of act 2, the parents decide to sort of ignore what that voiceover has said, and then, but the voiceover gives another warning about killing aquatic life, and they see the plate is dissolved in half. Okay, that takes the stakes to another level. That this product is going to actually cause some physical damage in your home. Okay, and then we move into the second half of Act 2, where the kids don't really seem bothered by that. And then right away in the second half of Act 2, the voiceover hits again. So everything's kind of getting faster and faster. And it says it'll shrink testicles. And the dad is like, nope. He throws down his sponge. Yeah. He gathers his family. And he drops the F-bomb.
What the
And that's where we kind of finish up with Act 2, the second half of Act 2. And ToxiClean, right as we move into the third act, literally does a direct address to the characters and says,
Do not question the ToxiClean.
And when we go into the close-up on ToxiClean, and then the third act is about how, no, this commercial is not really for ToxiClean. It's for this other product that cleans things in a responsible way. Let me shine.
Yes.
And we spend our third act seeing what the actual product is and why it's better than cleaning products like ToxiClean.
And that brings us into step 3, which is rhythm. And this can be explained as the tempo of the cuts, like how long each shot is, one after the other. Or if you're editing a bigger project, you could talk about the length of scenes, how you go from scene to scene. And then you could zoom out even more on a big project and talk about the length of the acts and how the timing of those elements feel with one another. And I'll start this one. So Scott brought up music. This was such a music-driven piece that even though we didn't get the final song recorded from the music house that put together this hilarious parody song, I needed to have a rhythm established by music. So I actually, being a composer, I sang this silly jingle to myself, and I think I maybe recorded on guitar. I made up a little parody jingle to inspire the rhythm of my edits.
Yeah, I feel like what the spot does is it lulls you into a consistent rhythm that moves with the song in the first half of the piece. So in the first act and the first half of Act 2, we're kind of lulled into this kind of normal, consistent rhythm. But then when the testicles thing happens, that's when things really start to speed up. So the rhythm picks up. And so the dad immediately reacts. He throws down the sponge dissolves. We have a quick, almost smash cut to the family, and he's yelling. And then we go very quickly to a shot of the ToxiClean that we kind of smash zoom in on, and it moves very quickly in the second half of Act 2 there.
Yeah.
So the rhythm changes. Even though the song is still going, the rhythm's changed, and it's almost like things are getting out of control. Things are bad. This is where it's kind of going off the rails. But of course, the ToxiClean keeps playing its song. It wants everything to just be normal. But the rhythm has changed. The rhythm is doing what the characters want now. They're panicking, and the rhythm is getting more panicked as well. And then in the third act, we have a single shot. The rhythm changes to a single shot, a motion graphic of the actual product, where we're allowed to relax and feel like, okay, everything's changed. Now we're being told the funny has happened, the panic has happened. It's not about ToxiClean. It's about this other product that is gonna be smooth and do things in a responsible way, and you can just relax. In fact, we don't have any cutting at that point. We just get to watch this motion graphic happen.
And that's a perfect segue into my fourth criteria, which is sound. So we have these emotional targets we're trying to hit. We have the story structure. We have the rhythm that's taking us through the story and then highlighting those emotions. And then we can plus everything up and take it to a different level with our sound design. And there's some really cool pieces of sound design in here that I wanted to point out. First and foremost being the song. This is very music driven. So a music house actually took the time to create a funny parody song. And then Scott did a wonderful job at casting and directing the voiceover talent. But you'll notice there's some key sounds, especially at the beginning, that make me laugh. Because we have these funny sound effects, just like you would see in a real commercial. Like there's these beautiful sparkles coming out, and they look very happy. And then we have this really happy sound of them coming out. A sound that is like sparkles.
ToxiClean cleans fast.
But then it contrasts with the voiceover that what these sparkles do is actually very damaging. And I think that's funny. So even though it's music driven, Scott and I went through and we plussed up little moments with sound. So we have the sparkle sound, and then you hear a drip when the mom lifts up the plate. You'll hear that in the soundtrack. And those are just some of the sounds that come to mind.
The editors I've talked to and the directors I've talked to, they really, while they're figuring out the cut, they really focus on the temp music and the rhythm. So if you can't, score a piece yourself, you at least have to get some temp music in there that will be a good guide, because you really don't know if the cut's working. If something is music driven, you just got to have something there. You just otherwise would not know. So I guess I really want to emphasize how important sound is, and in this case, music, because it's just totally music driven.
And that leads us into step 5, which I call action, because I'm thinking about the action within each shot and where I cut in and out of each shot. And you'll notice, a lot of people online mostly teach software and they teach technical stuff. Then maybe the next level, they do talk about actually where to cut in and out. But you might notice that that's my last step. And these are in order of importance. Because I think I've found, and Scott's found, if you've targeted the right emotions and you've got your story structure down and the rhythm is used to enhance the story and the emotions, and you've plussed it all up with sound design, you're doing great. The audience is with you on the journey. So finding the right places to cut in and out of shots and choosing the right shots is icing on the cake. But we can get that right too. And in terms of each shot, what I'm just thinking about is, what am I showing in each shot? And I love, as an editor, I'm in charge of what the audience sees and how long they see it. There's a lot of power in that. So I'm just kind of going through here trying to find an interesting shot. So the mom pulling out the plate. So instead of matching on the action, a lot of beginning editors will always think about matching on the action. Oh, I'm going to connect these two shots. I'm going to show her start to pull out the plate, and then I'm going to cut to a different shot and she's going to finish. What I like to teach is no, think about including the entire action, whatever that is, in the shot. Then you have full control over the timing. So I decided, you see, right when she starts pulling up the plate is when I cut in. And then she looks over, and that's a wonderful out point because it is you could call it a glance object cut. So she's glancing at the husband, and then we cut to the husband. And the action of this shot is him looking at the ToxiClean, and that's it. He has eye contact with her, which really connects these two shots. Great eye line, Scott. And then he looks down, and that's the story of that shot, and so on and so forth.
This is a great example where a frame matters in cutting comedy. There was something about having the tail of her shot being exactly what you have, where you recognize the look on her face. Hey, honey, what's going on here? Something might be wrong with this product. And then he's kind of going from a smile to getting a little concerned and looking at the sponge, and then cutting out of his shot to his child holding a sponge, you know?
Right, that's great.
So he's looking at the sponge, but then his kid is holding the sponge. And I also recall a discussion about the out point of this shot of the kids, where the boy kind of settles and looks up as his daddy, proud, right before right as the testicles line is hitting on the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And there was something really funny about the voiceover saying, hey, your testicles are going to shrink, and going from the little boy who's innocent, who's clearly not hearing this, or at least not understanding it, settling into his position, and then you smash cut to the violence of the dad throwing the stuff down.
So that is it. That is my 5 steps that can transformed my editing process. And it wasn't always this way. This is a process that I've kind of landed on throughout a long career. And my hope is that you can take this into your own edits. So I'll recap real quick. Have target emotions that you want the audience to feel. Take a minute and really think through that, maybe even away from your computer, write them down. And then if you have a collaborator, get on the same page so you guys are going toward the same goal. Have a dramatic structure, no matter what you are editing, whether it's a short, funny commercial like this, or it's a medium length documentary, or even a YouTube video. Have a structure in mind. Then use rhythm and sound and action to support the emotion and the story. And I guarantee if you put this process into action, your edits are going to get better and better and better fast. Now, if you like this process, you should download my free editing guide at the link below, which expounds on it a little further. And then if you want to go even deeper, check out my course where I go through this process in detail in a really cool high-budget short film called Treasure Imagination, and you will work on real editing projects, and I'll give you real feedback. So I can't thank Scott enough for looking at this. Please go check him out. Give him a follow. He's very active on Instagram, has a ton of followers, and he is going to start releasing some really cool YouTube content in the near future. So go follow him both places. And if you liked this video, you should watch this one next. Happy editing.